This video is a part of my Integra Protocol digital seminar. To learn more about it, read the description below. Internal conflicts. In the previous video, we pointed out that stuck identities that create internal conflicts are the core of our emotional problems. And how identities get stuck and create internal conflicts. Identities get stuck when we experience a defeat, when some of our goals fail. Imagine a man who has a satisfying relationship with his girlfriend. To gain and maintain such a relationship, he must be able to assume a suitable identity in the first place. For example, an open person identity with a goal to have love. Imagine that he had no problem with women in the past, which means that he doesn't have stuck identities regarding male-female relationships. He has freedom as opposed to stuckness. He freely enters this relationship, assumes the identities that he needs when in the company of his partner, and freely moves to other identities when his partner is not around. One day, his partner tells him that she has fallen in love with another man and has already started a new relationship. This is a moment of defeat. His goal to have love just failed. He is shocked and confused. Why is he confused? Because he doesn't have a behavioral pattern for this situation, since it's happening to him for the first time. He doesn't know how to behave in this situation. Ability to recognize and learn patterns is what ensured survival to our ancestors, hunters and gatherers. An example of a pattern would be, when I hear this sound, it's a saber-toothed tiger, so I should go the other way. Recognizing and learning such patterns and teaching them to others meant our survival. We act according to our existing patterns. In the moment of defeat and confusion, we look for a pattern inside, and if we don't find one, we create it. This new pattern is what we call a decision of defeat. Imagine that the man from our example, in the moment of his defeat, comes up with the decision, love can hurt. This decision will serve at least two purposes. Now he created a pattern, and based on it, he knows how to behave. The unknown becomes known. It's not that unsafe anymore, because he understands it and knows what to do. This is how we make sense of the world. He immediately feels better because a pattern means safety, and safety means survival. This is what we inherited from our ancestors. The other purpose of this decision is to prevent the same negative outcome in the future, to avoid being hurt in a relationship again. Now we know the pattern, and we can avoid the negative outcome. When we come up with a decision of defeat, it becomes our truth about a certain aspect of reality, and we want to live in accordance to that truth. We want to enforce it. And to do that, the man from our example will assume a new identity. For example, closed person, with a goal to avoid getting hurt. Before the incident, he was in the open person identity, with the goal to have love. And during or after the incident, he shifted into the closed person identity, with the goal to avoid getting hurt. Notice, the open person identity did not vanish. It is still there. Only the man now assumed the opposite identity, the closed person. And now we have a conflict, two identities against one another. At this stage, a conflict is like a tennis match, two players against one another. In short, this is how conflicts are created. 1. There is a defeat of a goal. 2. A confusion happens because we don't know how to behave, missing pattern. 3. We create a pattern, decision of defeat, in order to handle the situation. 4. We assume an identity to enforce the decision. 5. This new identity is in conflict with the identity whose goal was defeated. And the man, from our example, will now oscillate between the two sides of the conflict. He will be identified with one side for a while, and then he will shift onto the other side, and he will be identified with the other side for a while. This happens because both identities are our parts, and their goals are our goals. We want both of those goals, but we perceive that we cannot have them both at the same time. For a while, the man enforces the identity closed person with the goal to avoid getting hurt. He tells himself stories like, I don't want a relationship, I don't want drama and anxiety, it's not worth it, I just need peace. The goal to avoid getting hurt now is passive, because it is achieved. No relationship means no opportunity to get hurt. This pattern is created to protect the man from getting hurt, and that is achieved. At the same time, the conflicted identity open person with the goal to have love is not happy, because its goal is obstructed. Therefore, it is creating a negative emotional reaction which the man is suppressing. And the more he suppresses it, the stronger it gets, until something triggers the man to shift onto the other side of the conflict. And now, he enforces the open person identity with the goal to have love, while suppressing the opposite identity, closed person. We shift onto the other side of the conflict when we achieve the goal of the first side, or experience a failure in doing so. Then, our man gets into a relationship where the identity open person and its goal to have love become passive, because their goal is now achieved. But the conflicted identity closed person and its goal to avoid getting hurt is now active, because they are obstructed, and that creates a negative reaction. This identity is created with the purpose to protect the man from getting hurt, and since the man put himself in the situation in which he can get hurt, the identity got active to serve the purpose for which it was created. The following is important to notice. When we have a conflict, we only have two options, and both will generate emotional problems. If we turn to side A, side B will complain, and vice versa. When we turn to side B, side A will complain. That's how the conflicts work, and that's why we want to integrate them. And the man will keep oscillating between the identities. Every time he shifts from one side to another, he will add more decisions, more identities and charge to both sides, creating what I call a multilayered conflict. What used to be one identity against another identity is now two groups of identities against one another. Each group will consist of identities with aligned goals. What used to be a tennis match is now a football match. The advanced method of Integra Protocol is intended to handle multi-layered conflicts. What is the solution for our problems based on an internal conflict? To successfully apply Integra Protocol and integrate all stuck identities on both sides of the conflict. This will eliminate the problem, and unlike before, one will be able to take side A or side B without a negative reaction. Now, there are no unconscious goals on either side to oppose and create negative reactions. when one finds oneself on the other side. Instead of compulsiveness, the freedom of choice is restored. In our example, this means that a man is able to be single without being bothered by unconscious goals to get a relationship, or to be in a relationship without anxiety of getting hurt. What is also important to understand is the following. While using Integra Protocol methods, we can release one, two, or a number of identities in one process, depending which method we use. Once we release a stuck identity, we don't lose the ability to use that identity if we need it. The identity is not stuck and compulsive anymore, but we can assume it if we need it. We have the freedom from the identity, but also freedom for the identity. If I release a stuck identity aggressive person, that does not mean that I will not be able to use it in the future if I find that identity optimal for a situation. Or if I release a stuck identity tolerant person, that does not mean that I will not be able to use it in the future if I find that identity optimal for a situation. It is important to understand the difference between a stuck identity that creates compulsive emotional reactions and our ability to use any identity we need. If you would like to be notified when I upload my weekly YouTube videos, please subscribe to this channel and select the bell icon.